We're in the we're in the third chapter. We've completed the second chapter of Bava, and we've learned the concept of mu'ad. Mu'ad, I've translated throughout these source sheets as known, something that's known. And the point is that if you know about a danger, if your ox is known to gore, that's the classic case brought in Mishpatim in the Tanakh, in the Torah. If your ox is known to gore, or by the way, if your ox is known to gore, you have greater responsibility to take care of it. And that applies, the Mishnah is going to apply that to all kinds of situations way beyond the ox, where a danger is known to exist. It's mu'ad. And the second chapter of Bava Kama closed actually with the idea, Adam mu'ad le'olam. A human is always known. What does that mean? And it went on to say, by the way, bein shogeg, bein mezid, whether by accident or on purpose, whether awake or asleep. In other words, a human is always responsible for his actions. And this idea that humans are responsible. So animals are different, right? Animals sometimes, animals might have it in their nature to eat if you put food in front of them, but maybe not to gore. The only animal that's known to gore is a known, so to speak, one that's known to be dangerous. But a human's always responsible for his actions or her actions. And as we jump into the third chapter of Bava Kama, we're going to explore this idea a little bit more. And by the way, we will put some limits on it. So the Mishnah begins with someone who leaves a dangerous object or a potentially dangerous object lying around in public space. Someone left a jug in public space. This might be full or it might not be full. Well, let's carry on in the Mishnah. And somebody else came over and tripped over it and broke it. The jug was broken. And the Mishnah just has one word, patur. Patur. Exempt. Exempt. Now, who is exempt? Well, we'll see from context in the Mishnah in a minute, but it seems as if the person that is exempt here is the person that broke the jug. In other words, if you put down a jug in public space and I trip over it, I have no responsibility. It's your problem that you put the jug in public space. You cannot expect other people in public space to take care. They might be walking along looking at their iPhone. You cannot assume that they're looking out for your jug. And if your jug is broken, it's your responsibility. But we're going to go further. Let's say the person that breaks your jug is actually damaged by it. They trip over your jug and then they hurt their knee. The owner of the jug, it's called a chavit now, which is a barrel. So the suggestion is maybe something a bit larger than the jug is sitting outside in the public space. The owner of the barrel is liable for the person's injury. In other words, not only can you not only are you at risk for your possessions, but you're at risk for the damage that your possessions cause if you put them out in public space. Let's keep going. So his jug broke in public space and someone slipped on the water. Now, this is really interesting because we don't know yet whether this person intended to break the jug in public space. Now, our Mishnah at the end of the second chapter said, Adam muad l'olam ben shogeg ben mezid. A human is always known, i.e. always carries liability, whether on accident or on purpose, whether by accident or on purpose. And now we've got this jug breaking in the public domain and someone is slipping on the water. So we have second order causation here. They're not slipping on the jug. They're slipping on the water that was in the jug. So we have a double accident, so to speak. Or maybe they were hurt by the potsherds. They were hurt by the bits of pot which is maybe flying around in the public space. And the Mishnah rules chayav. This Mishnah traditionally is the Mishnah of Rabbi Meir, all anonymous Mishnayot in the Mishnah of Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir is going to say, look, we know that humans are always liable, even by accident. The owner of this jug who broke it in the public space is liable. And Rabbi Yehuda will actually put some limits here. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, B'mit kaven chayav. Rabbi Yehuda says, if with intention, he's liable. In other words, if he intended to break this jug in public space, he's liable. But if he did it without intention, he's not liable. It's as if Rabbi Yehuda is saying, look, this person was hurt indirectly by the jug. It's not as if the person was holding a jug in the public space and inadvertently dropped it on someone's head. He dropped the jug and then someone was hurt. And Rabbi Yehuda is saying, look, in this situation, he's not liable. And the Mishnah goes on with questions about water and about dangerous things in public spaces. We've seen before that Mishnayot tend to be joined to one another by common subject matter. So they may change subject in the middle of the Mishnah, but quite often one Mishnah is joined to the next one by some common link. And sure enough, this is, if we think now, not about someone who puts down a jug and not someone who breaks a jug, but someone who pours out water. So someone is deliberately pouring out water in the public space. And someone was injured by it. He's liable for the injury. So even though water is I guess it's a non-substantial element, but we're still liable for it if we pour it out in public space. Someone who hides thorns or glass. Now, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? Maybe in a fence. I mean, in London, people still actually put sharp things in fences to dissuade burglars. Someone who hides thorns or glass. And someone who makes his fence out of thorns. And a fence which falls into public space. So maybe we have a fence on the boundary at private and public space, and maybe it falls down. Maybe it falls down into public space. And someone was injured. He's liable for his injury. In other words, we seem to take responsibility for things which spill out from private space into public space. To a certain extent, and the Rambam makes an incredibly interesting comment here, which is based on the Gemara, but it's limiting. It's limiting. And the Rambam says, "Mash amar hamatzniat hakotz v'tazchuchit v'hagoder geder bekotzim." What the Mishnah is saying here is that if someone hides thorns or glass or makes a fence out of thorns and someone's damaged by them, and he's liable, of course, the Mishnah says they're liable, chayav. But we're talking about a specific circumstances. Zehu k'shehotzioli reshut harabim. We're referring to someone who actually did this on public space, someone who hid thorns or glass or made a fence out of thorns in public space. If he does it on his own property, eino chayav klum. If he does it on his own property, he's not liable for anything. Lefisha ikaru atzleinu ein darkan shel bnei adam lehit chachech. But because we've got a principle. It has a principle of normality. And we're going to come back to this principle again and again through the Mishnah. We've already seen, we've discussed questions about what animals normally do and what they don't normally do. So we have a principle of normality. We have a principle, it's not normal for people to rub against walls. It's not normal for people to go rubbing up against walls, maybe except if they're trying to climb the wall. So you are allowed, from the point of view of strict liability, to put thorns in your own wall. The point that the Mishnah is making that you have liability is if you put thorns in a wall which is sitting in public space.